I do think it begins with hiring the right law firm on the front end. David, you really can't guarantee a win, but let me tell you something you can do. You can have an impact in controlling the outcome of your case based on who you retain as a lawyer. There's a reason why firms out there talk about the fact that you don't ever have to come to our office. We can do everything remotely. And it is that those firms are probably not building the same types of relationships that we are trying to build with our clients. I don't want to just do everything remotely. I want to sit face to face with a client. I want to talk with that client. And David, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of things we can do remotely to help people's schedules and make it efficient for them. But I'm here and prepared to sit down and talk with a client and go through an interview process. And guess what? Every one of our lawyers at this law firm is prepared and ready and willing to do that too.
Welcome to the Law Talk Podcast, where we take you behind the curtains of a successful personal injury law firm. This season, attorneys at Hollis Wright will discuss several comeback stories involving real clients of the firm. Find out through specific cases and clients how the Hollis Wright attorneys turn oftentimes catastrophic injuries and situations into comeback stories. Follow along as attorneys detail various cases, including how the injury occurred, how the firm thoroughly investigated the case, how the firm provided the best possible outcome for the client, and how the client is today. Welcome into the Law Talk Podcast. David Lamb here with managing partner of Hollis Wright, Josh Wright. Josh, good to see you, sir.
You too. Hope you're doing great.
I am doing well. So I've got a question for you. So I know you had a celebrated collegiate athletic high school career. That's what I remember. That's what I remember.
It gets better every year.
It does. Your talent, yes. So I remember I did play baseball, and I was behind a guy named Johnny Rimbert. He went on to play for the New England Patriots, but he could just hammer the ball in baseball, right?
Yeah.
So I rode the bench until Johnny graduated, right? Do you recall ever going against someone where you knew, I've got to outthink this guy. I've got to figure a different way to turn things around to my advantage?
Sure, absolutely. And I can go back to high school athletically with people that were more athletic than this guy. And I can also talk about being in the courtroom and on the other side of cases where I recognized that maybe things were stacked a little against my client, but there were ways that I could tip the scales of justice, if you were, in our favor to be successful by being able to go get the right deposition and the right issue resolved.
And I'll just say, from a client perspective, that's what I would want. Like, I would want, the facts are the facts, and you can only do so much with them, but you want somebody representing you that does you want things to figure out a way to make this be an advantage for me rather than a disadvantage, right?
100%.
Yeah.
No question.
All right. So relative to the legal field, let's talk today about tipping things in the favor of a client. And where does that begin?
Well, I do think it begins with hiring the right law firm on the front end. David, you really can't guarantee a win, but let me tell you something you can do. You can have an impact in controlling the outcome of your case based on who you retain as a lawyer. I find a lot of times in the middle of litigation that there will be lawyers on the other side of my cases that come and go throughout the case, where maybe a younger lawyer is handling certain deposition, an older lawyer comes in to try the case later but has not been involved. Well, I've been involved from the start in each deposition and been involved in the strategy behind the case. I often say that the person that knows the facts and the law the best in the case, kind of the ninja of the case, if you will, controls the lawsuit. And so I'm a big believer in being an active part of my cases from start to finish. Doesn't mean I don't get other people involved, but I'm still intimately involved in reviewing what they've done immediately after they do it so that I know in context what's going on with the case. But there are ways that you can tip the scales of justice in your favor to make sure you hire the right law firm.
Is one way to wisely hire an attorney is look for someone who has experience and success dealing with exactly what you're going through? Because you all do have, you've tried, this firm I don't know what the cumulative total is of the number of years in the legal field, but you all have a collection of attorneys that have a great deal of successful winning experience in cases, probably every case out there.
Yeah, certainly winning helps, and having the level of experience that we do at our law firm, from where this firm started with Andy Hollis, my original partner, who retired back in 2012, and the group that we have now that has 10 lawyers, all that are active litigators, many of whom try cases regularly and are in courtrooms across the state of Alabama. A lot of cases resolved before they get to trial, but for those that don't, when you have to try those cases get tried. And our litigators are ready to do that. But ultimately, it's a cumulative effect of all the lawyers that we have here and the training process that we use to make sure that they are prepared to understand how to litigate a case correctly, but also how to strategically work with counsel on the other side and insurance companies in order to try and determine what is the maximum way that we can resolve a claim for a client.
It seems like these cases often start with the question, hey, Josh, here's what happened. Do I have a case? That seems to be the first kind of a determination of that. But are you a proponent of, once you find out if you do have a case, almost interviewing the firm so that you know that you're getting it right? Because that is a crucial step in that legal process, is getting the right attorney and the right firm on your side.
100%. You know, there's a reason why firms out there talk about the fact that you don't ever have to come to our office. We can do everything remotely. And it is that those firms are probably not building the same types of relationships that we are trying to build with our clients. I don't want to just do everything remotely. I want to sit face-to-face with a client. I want to talk with that client. And David, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of things we can do remotely to help people's schedules and make it efficient for them. But I'm here and prepared to sit down and talk with a client and go through an interview process. And guess what? Every one of our lawyers at this law firm is prepared and ready and willing to do that too. Because oftentimes I think people just assume, well, I'm going to try and be as efficient as I can. I'm going to go with this law firm where I don't have to go in and talk with the lawyers directly. Clients need to be able to ask questions and not be fearful to ask questions. And there's some questions they can ask that can tell you, am I going to get this result or am I going to get this result?
Let's run over those questions. So what are the questions we should be asking of our attorneys before we hire them to represent us?
After over 25 years experience as a lawyer, I can just tell you that there are a series of questions that you can ask your lawyer, and that's going to help you define and determine, am I with the right firm, and do I have the ability to maximize my recovery? Question number one is not the person advertising on television that we see all the time, but the person that actually is assigned to your case. Do you, lawyer that is assigned to my case, personally handle and litigate and try cases monthly throughout our state? Do you do that? Do you personally do that? That's an important question because if you're finding someone that is only turning cases quickly, not actually going through what's called motions to dismiss and motions for summary judgment and trials at times, that's something that you need to be aware of. You need to know what type of lawyer you're getting. Question number two that I think is critically important. Do you personally, the lawyer handling this case, do you have close to 100% track record of success? Don't get me wrong, David. There are circumstances that happen throughout the course of a lawsuit where maybe a case you thought you were going to be successful in, it doesn't result in the success that you had, or you're mitigating damage in trying to resolve the case. That happens. There's no question. Sometimes things are out of the control of the client and the lawyer throughout the litigation process based on a fact or something they learn. But here at Hollis Wright, we have lawyers that have been trained to completely and fully evaluate cases all the way around before they're taken, to know the cases that we take and that we file have close to 100% track record of some level of success. And again, I want to make sure I'm clear. outlier circumstances. But you want to find out, does that lawyer have a really strong track record for a good result? And then I think the most important thing you can ask as a client, and by the way, you shouldn't be fearful to ask these questions of a lawyer. If they're unwilling to answer these questions, then you're in the wrong place. You need to be able to ask, give me some examples. Give me 4 or 5 examples of what you've done over the last 5 years related to some cases. Give me a tough case that you had and how it worked out favorably for you. Give me a really good result that you had in a case you didn't think on the front end you were going to be successful in. And I'll tell you this, all 10 of our lawyers can sit down and have that interview and answer those questions.
Should you be able to also ask about money? Is this going to cost? Because that's a major concern, but sometimes folks don't want to talk about money. But the money conversation of what are my financial obligations? What are your financial obligations?
100%. And that's a question you should never be fearful to ask. And if there's a lawyer on the other side that is frustrated to answer that question, then you probably need to look around. At the end of the day, that's an honest question, which is, please explain how your contract works. And we're willing to talk about that and explain it and talk about, for example, what exactly is a contingency fee contract? We hear this term that we don't ever have an obligation as a client to pay anything if you're not successful. But lawyer, what does that mean? I'd like you to explain it to me in simple form so that I can understand it and know what are my actual obligations. And we do that all the time. Clients should not be afraid to ask that.
I don't know if this is the right phrasing, but should there be also almost an outlook, philosophy similarities? And by that I mean, are you going in with a firm that really doesn't like going to trial, just wants to settle everything, versus the opposite? Like should those philosophies and approaches, should they line up?
Yeah, they should line up. When you're a client and you're going in, you should be able to identify the type of firm that you're talking with based on asking some of those really simple but important questions to get an idea of really what you're looking at going with the firm that you're going with. And let me say this, some business models are set up in such a way that they are a volume practice, and you will get assigned to someone who has experience but is a younger lawyer because they're trying to turn your case. And by the way, there are some cases out there that just need to be quickly turned, that from a value perspective, they need to be quickly turned. But with our firm and what we teach our lawyers and the process that we use, our litigation philosophy, our litigation process, we do it a little bit differently. We are intending to take a case on its face that may have a value of $20,000 and turn it into a case worth $50,000, and a case worth $50,000, turn it into $250,000, and you can do the numbers and add it up. The reality is we're trying to impress our client with an understanding that they walk in with a certain type of case, and we've gone the extra mile, dug deeper, rolled our sleeves up, and turned that case into something even better.
Before we go to break, what are your thoughts and how important are websites and Google reviews?
Super important. I would have told you 5 years ago that the internet was not a huge source of business for law firms. In the last 5 years, that has changed drastically. A lot of people don't just hire their lawyer based on a television advertisement, don't just hire their lawyer based on a billboard or a television show or a podcast. They hire their lawyer doing a little research on their end, especially if they don't know someone that has a relationship with that firm. The internet is critically important. When we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of Google reviews. I want to talk a little bit about digging deeper into the website of the law firm and learning a little bit about the actual lawyer you're going to hire. I think that's critically important.
All right, we'll do that. We're going to step aside. After the break, more of the Law Talk podcast with Josh Wright. That's your name, right?
That's
Josh?
it. That's
Still
it.
Josh. Okay, just double checking. Josh Wright from Hollis Wright. Stay with us.
Injuries you sustain in an accident don't define who you are, but the firm you choose will. Choose wisely and select a firm with over 20 years of success of winning personal injury cases. Let Hollis Wright tell your comeback story.
The attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Welcome back to the Law Talk Podcast, here with Josh Wright, managing partner of Hollis Wright, talking about tipping the scale in your favor when it comes to legal representation. When we went to break, we were talking about websites and Google reviews, and you know, online and having so much information, valuable information online. I think folks are so much more comfortable than they were, just 5-10 years ago in researching. But those really are great resources, a website and Google reviews, to try to do your due diligence as a client, if you will, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. We get a lot of business through the internet today. As I was saying before we left to break, 5 years ago, it wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Now it is. And people are doing their research. They're evaluating websites. They're digging deeper. They're learning about the lawyer that they have. People are coming to our law firm now, and in their submission to us through our website or otherwise, they're asking for specific lawyers based on the type of work that lawyer does. We promote all of our lawyers on our website. There's a history of our lawyers, some success rates. They can drill down into results that this law firm has had and see a little bit about the process we use to litigate cases and what makes our secret sauce different than someone else's. Another huge component is Google reviews. And you can tell a lot about Google reviews. I know we all use them. When I'm looking for a hotel, when I traveled with my family recently, I went and looked at Google reviews. That mattered to me. When I'm looking for restaurants, I'm looking. Sometimes there are hundreds of Google reviews for a business, some of which are really, really unfavorable. And don't get me wrong, there are going to be some people that are disenfranchised with every law firm. But you can start to see trends. Okay. We have over 180 five-star Google reviews at this law firm. We're very proud of that. That tells you a little bit about, do we actually meet the expectations of the client, or do we just talk about having a great bedside manner? Do we just talk about having great results and turning one case into 3 times that case using our process? Is that just talk, or is it real? Google reviews is a way to flush that out. Go to people's website. Don't just look at their star rating. Look at the actual reviews. Read them. Find out what people are saying about that firm. And then, so important, don't just base it on that. And don't just send an email to the firm and say, I want you to represent me. Meet your lawyer. Talk with your lawyer. Even if you're not able to come in and meet with your lawyer, be able to have a conversation with them. We do a lot of video conferencing here, and I love it because I'm able to face-to-face look at a client and talk with them about what's going on in their case and learn a little bit about them, about really what happened to them, et cetera. So interview your lawyer and have a relationship with your lawyer.
How does having courtroom trial experience weigh in here? Does it matter? Is that something you should know going into your relationship with your attorney?
So the different types of problems someone has in their life may dictate different things. If you're looking for a business transaction lawyer, the lawyer on the other side doesn't necessarily have to have a ton of trial experience. If you're looking to litigate a personal injury case or a product liability suit, in order to maximize your value, you want to make sure that you are with individuals that can litigate cases. And we've got 10 folks here that are litigators that litigate cases. And trying cases is a component of that. And if you find a firm and you really want to determine whether or not they're maximizing the value of their clients' cases, you need to ask about their trial record. And do they try cases? Are they consistently in courtrooms? Over their time frame and experience, have they tried cases? I mean, David, let's be fair. You try enough cases and get enough results, insurance companies and business America knows, and they don't force you to try cases anymore. They pay you the correct value because they know you're going to go try that case. But there are still cases to be tried. And at the end of the day, not every case that we have tries. We're not going to try and argue to a client, your case is guaranteed to trial. Some people don't want to go through the process of trial, right? However, if you push insurance companies and push businesses to the courthouse steps at times, that's your best friend, by the way, is a trial setting. And we're always craving to get those as our litigators learn here at this firm. If you push them to the courthouse steps, the value of the case is increased. Now, to be fair, lots of cases settle early. Some cases are just destined to settle early because they're worth more than the limits of liability. Maybe the liability is so bad it is easy for the insurance company to justify an early resolution. So not every case gets pushed to trial, but you want to make sure that you're with a litigation team. If you've got a personal injury, a product liability, a drug-related case, you want to make sure you're with somebody that knows how to try a case and is not afraid of the courtroom and knows where the courtroom is and knows the various counties that you're going to make sure that you can maximize your value because the other side knows those lawyers.
All right, so experience, obviously quite important. What about the size of the law firm? Does that really make a difference?
I would say that experience and resources of the law firm matters a lot more than just the size of the law firm. It is easy to market out there. We're the biggest and the baddest in the area. We are the largest law firm in this county. We're the largest law firm in the state or in the world. It's easy to argue those things. David, resources are super important. Experience is super important. Those are the two most significant categories I would look at. If you think for 1 minute that size is going to dictate the greatest result, you are making a huge mistake. Experience and resources. And by the way, don't be afraid to ask about resources. When you go talk to that law firm, you need to ask, do you have the financial wherewithal, the resources, the experts in place to be able to litigate my case without fear that my case is going to cost too much? Don't be afraid to ask that. That's an important question and a question all 10 of our lawyers can answer.
All right. Where should we land this? What is your kind of parting thoughts and what you want folks to take away from this discussion?
I think that all law firms are not created equally. All chemistry at law firms is not the same. Teaching process matters, and doing your homework. It's one thing to say a lawyer, when they get into your case, is going to roll their sleeves up and go to work for you. You, too, need to do the same thing in your preparation for a very important time in your life where you need help legally, if you need help from a litigator and a trial lawyer. And so do your homework, roll your sleeves up, and talk with people, ask the right questions to make your own decision. And hopefully you're going to land with a firm that has a good practice of the lawyers at their law firm where you're going to get consistent representation among whoever you hire at that firm. But ask about the lawyers that you're hiring because I think it's important.
I know you often talk about emotion, and there's a time for emotion, but these are personal decisions, often heavy with emotion of loss or pain, and there so many things. Anger, yeah. But it's probably good to kind of put on a business, like this is a business transaction discussion.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's time for the business side of the case. Right. And evaluation of the facts and circumstances that led to the event, and how do we get to the next step of resolution of that case, whether it's through trial or otherwise. And then there's a time for the emotional side and the drama that is trial work, where sometimes those cases do in fact get tried and you've got to turn that component on in the case to really be able to tell someone's story. At the end of the day, I think the focus here is to make sure that you allow the law firm to take the pressure and the stress off of you. Let them manage it. That's what we're good at. And I tell clients all the time, David, let us manage the stress and the pressure of what you're going through. And when you put your head down on the pillow, you hired the right law firm that's got you in mind and is protecting your interests. And you go get better, focus on getting back to work, focus on keeping your relationship together, etc. You handle that side, and we will make sure that we've got your back.
And you all do have a really good website, too, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Hollis-Wright.com.
That's right.
Also, you can find Hollis Wright all over social media as well. Josh, it's always good to see you.
Great to see you, too. Great show.
Great show. Good discussion for sure. Hopefully it was helpful and beneficial to you. We'll see you next time right here on the Law Talk Podcast.